The shuttle's interior was dim, the only illumination coming from the pulsing red security lights lining the walls. Adrian Kane sat in the center of the transport, his wrists bound by magnetic restraints that hummed faintly every time he moved. Across from him, for Gorthon enforcers watched, their slitted eyes betraying nothing but disdain. The largest of them, a broad-shouldered brute with deep blue scales, leaned forward. "I expected more from the Butcher of Zaltor," he sneered, his voice a low growl. "But you surrendered like a broken mercenary. Where's the fire? The fight?" Adrian remained silent, staring at him with the same unsettling calm he had maintained since his capture. His posture was relaxed, almost indifferent. It was a kind of stillness that made predators uneasy. The enforcer's smirk faltered. The others, less composed, shifted in their seats. They had heard the stories. A single human soldier, responsible for the destruction of 3 Imperial fleets. A ghost on the battlefield. Never confirmed dead, always resurfacing just when the Empire believed they had finally rid themselves of him. They had expected a monster. Instead, they had a man sitting in silence, his expression unreadable. One of the younger guards, eager to prove himself, scoffed. "They say you killed entire battalions alone, that you took down warlords, crippled command ships. That true?" Adrian exhaled through his nose, the closest thing to amusement they had seen from him. The guard's arrogance was thin, propped up only by the fact that Kane was in restraints. He didn't answer. The leader of the squad, Captain Drelkov, had been content to observe until now. He was older, more seasoned, with scars along his snout that spoke of close calls and victories hard won. He had seen the Empire crush entire civilizations. Humans, he believed, were no different. "You should enjoy this silence while it lasts," Drelkov said, his tone measured. "When we reach Corthor, the interrogators will have their way with you. They'll take you apart, piece by piece. The Grand Marshal himself is expecting your arrival." Adrian finally moved, tilting his head slightly. "Is he?" Drelkov's brow furrowed. Something about Kane's voice unsettled him. No fear, no anger. Just an easy, quiet confidence. "You misunderstand your situation, human," Drelkov continued, his irritation barely masked. "You're no longer a warrior, no longer a threat. You're a trophy." Kane's gaze flicked the shackles around his wrists, as if considering them for the first time. "A trophy?" He let the word sit for a moment. "Strange thing, bringing a trophy into your war room. Do you think your Grand Marshal will mount my head on his wall?" The way he said it, so casual, so certain, sent a ripple of unease to the cabin. Before Drelkov could respond, the shuttle jolted. A mechanical voice crackled through the speakers. "Entering Corthor airspace. Estimated docking in 3 minutes." Outside the reinforced windows, the fortress came into view, an obsidian monolith built into the surface of a barren moon, its towers bristling with gun emplacements and shield generators. No one escaped Corthor. No one even tried. The guard stiffened as the final approach began. The younger ones, the ones who had taunted Kane, checked their weapons, their bravado suddenly thinner. Drelkov watched him closely. "Make no mistake, human. This is the end for you." Kane met his gaze, unreadable as ever. Then, just as the shuttle docked, he smiled. It was not the smile of a defeated man. Adrian Kane sat in the center of the interrogation chamber, wrists still bound, posture unchanged. The room was stark, metallic walls, a single overhead light casting harsh shadows, and a reinforced door behind which several guards undoubtedly waited. Across from him stood Commander Varshok, Warden of Corthor, a towering brute of an alien with dark green scales and a deep scar that ran from his brow to his jaw. His amber eyes held none of the arrogance that Adrian had seen in the enforcers aboard the transport. This one was different, calculating. Between them, a projection flickered to life, displaying Adrian's military record. The numbers on the screen were staggering. 90,000 confirmed kills. Even in a war that had stretched across galaxies, that number was absurd, unnatural. The silence stretched as Varshok studied the data. The guards who had brought Adrian and hadn't seen the full report. The ones who had left the room before the interrogation began had taken one last glance at the screen before making themselves scarce. But the warden, for all his restraint, remained. "You were a ghost to us for years, Varshak said finally, his voice even. Entire divisions vanish in your wake. Entire fleets. He gestured at the screen, shaking his head. And yet, here you are, a man, bound, unarmed. Adrian didn't respond. Varshak leaned forward slightly, resting his clawed hands on the table. I am not like Drelkov or the others. I do not waste time with threats or empty boasts. I want to understand. The light overhead flickered as Adrian shifted, just enough to ease the pressure off his shoulders. Understand what? Why you surrendered. The warden waited, watching, measuring. Adrian's lips parted in something almost resembling amusement. That your question? It is the only one that matters. Varshak gestured at the report again. I have studied your kind. Humans are adaptive, but also reckless. Dangerous in war, but fragile in captivity. And yet you, he exhaled sharply. I have officers outside this room who do not want to stand within 10 meters of you. Soldiers whisper your name like a curse. Some are already saying, we should kill you before the Grand Marshal arrives. Before. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Before what? Varshak hesitated. Before I do what I always do. Adrian finished for him. Before I slip through the cracks of your security and leave a trail of bodies behind. Varshak did not confirm it, but he didn't deny it either. Adrian tilted his head slightly, considering. The kill count bothers you. The warden's eyes darkened. It is improbable. That at last made Adrian smile, small, fleeting, but real. You think I inflated it? He asked. Think it's a fabrication? I think it is impossible. Adrian exhaled through his nose, amused. You're half right. The official count is only what your empire could verify. The real number is higher. A flicker of something passed through Varshak's expression. Not fear, something worse. Recognition. Adrian leaned forward, the restraints around his wrists humming softly in protest. You want to know why I surrendered? His voice was quiet, but the weight behind it was impossible to ignore. Because I wanted to see what kind of men lead this prison. What kind of men command the Empire's war machine. And now I know. He sat back, utterly unconcerned. You're afraid of me. More than that, you're afraid of what I represent. Varshak's jaw tightened. You want to believe your empire is invincible, Adrian continued, watching the warden carefully. That your war machine is unstoppable. That men like me are anomalies, freak occurrences, not the result of something larger, something growing. A heavy silence stretched between them. I know what happens next, Adrian said after a moment. The Grand Marshal arrives. He demands my execution, or worse, an experiment. He will try to break me down, dissect me, find out why I exist the way I do. He nodded at the data screen still flickering beside them. And then he will fail, because your empire does not understand humanity. And by the time you do, it will be too late. Varshak studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached for his communicator. Outside, the guard stiffened as a new order was issued. The fortress had just shifted from containment to crisis. The order spread through Korther like wildfire. Guards exchanged uneasy glances, their postures stiff as they whispered among themselves. The human's presence had already unsettled them, but now they knew. The numbers had been revealed. 90,000. Not soldiers killed in combined efforts. Not victories credited to a fleet. Personal kills. Confirmed. Verified. And Adrian Kane sat in a cell beneath their feet, waiting. Outside the warden's chamber, the officers hesitated before entering. Even those who had never faced Kane in battle felt something instinctual warning them, something deep in their bones. Fear. Commander Varshak remained at his desk, fingers pressed together, unreadable as his second-in-command. Captain Yarlock stormed in. Unlike his superior, Yarlock made no attempt to mask his unease. Sir, this is madness. Yarlock spat, his mandibles clicking with agitation. The men, some are refusing to even patrol near his cell. The security division is requesting double the guard presence, but others, he exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Others are saying we should execute him immediately, before the Grand Marshal arrives. Varshak did not look up. His eyes remained fixed on the projection of Kane's record. "He surrendered, Captain," the warden said, voice measured. "Why do you think that is?" Yarlock paced, tail flicking in agitation. "Does it matter? The man should not exist. No single human could." He stopped himself, as if speaking the thought aloud would make it worse. Varshak finally looked up. "But he does exist." Silence. Yarlock clenched his jaw. "You saw him, heard him." He wasn't boasting about his kill count. He barely acknowledged it. That number would break lesser man. He should be either proud or haunted, but he is neither. What does that tell you? Varshak leaned back. That he has not yet begun to fight. The words hung in the air. A chime echoed through the room, and a transmission flickered onto the screen. A face appeared, Grand Marshal Ovaris, the highest-ranking military official in the sector. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone sent a fresh wave of tension to the command center. "Warden," Ovaris greeted, voice cold. "Your report?" Varshak did not hesitate. "The human has been secured, but there is an issue." The Grand Marshal's eyes narrowed. "Explain." A beat passed before the warden turned the screen, revealing the kill count. Ovaris stilled. Behind him, his officers whispered among themselves, their faces pale. The Grand Marshal's expression hardened. "This is confirmed?" "Verified through multiple sources," Varshak said evenly. "The count is conservative." A flicker of something passed through Ovaris' gaze. "Disbelief?" "No, something worse. Recognition." "We will arrive in 12 hours, the Grand Marshal finally said. "Until then, double security on his cell. No one enters without my authorization." "Understood." "Understood," Varshak confirmed. The transmission cut. Yarlock let out a slow breath. He knew. Varshak nodded. "Yes." "What does that mean?" The warden exhaled. "It means the fear didn't start here. It started above us, deep beneath the fortress." Adrian Kane sat in silence. The lights flickered overhead. The walls had started to whisper. The first scream shattered the uneasy quiet of Corther's lower levels. It wasn't a battle cry, nor was it the defiant roar of a prisoner challenging his captors. It was fear, raw and undeniable. The alarms followed, blaring through the prison with sharp, grating intensity. Adrian Kane exhaled slowly, his head tilting slightly as he listened. The distant thudding of boots, the crackling bark of energy rifles, the wet crunch of something breaking under force. It was starting. His hands were still bound. His cell was still locked. And yet, this was the moment. Outside, chaos spread like fire in dry grass. The lower-level prisoners, those too dangerous to be used, too unstable to be trusted, had somehow been released. Mutinous roars echoed to the halls as alien war criminals, mercenaries, and deserters flooded the corridors. Some seized the opportunity for freedom, tearing through guards with desperate savagery. Others sought revenge for years of imprisonment, turning their wrath on anyone in uniform. And in the middle of it all, the fear of one man's presence loomed larger than the riot itself. The guards were unfocused, uncoordinated. The riot wasn't supposed to happen, not here, not now. They should have been prepared. But the moment they'd seen his record, the moment his kill count became known, the cracks had formed. Doubt, paranoia, hesitation. It had only taken one push. A squad of soldiers sprinted past Adrian's cell, rifles raised, their voices frantic. "Fall back! Fall back!" One of them, a younger officer with wide, terrified eyes, made the mistake of glancing at Kane's door. His steps faltered. Kane smiled. The soldier nearly tripped in his panic before bolting after his squad mates. Another tremor shook the facility. An explosion deeper in the prison. The power flickered. The lights dimmed. Adrian flexed his fingers, feeling the restraints bite into his skin. Not yet. Down the hall, the heavy slam of boots announced a different presence. Not panicked guards. Not desperate prisoners. Someone else. Commander Varshak. The warden marched toward his cell, flanked by 3 elite guards in reinforced armor. He did not look rattled. If anything, he looked resigned. He stopped just outside the door, staring at Kane through the reinforced glass. "You planned this," Varshak said, voice even. Kane's expression was unreadable. "No." Varshak narrowed his eyes. "I didn't plan it," Kane continued. "I just knew it would happen." The warden exhaled through his nose, his jaw tightening. "The Grand Marshal is en route. He will arrive to nothing but fire and corpses if this continues." Kane tilted his head, then opened the door. "Silence. You're insane," one of the guards snapped, gripping his weapon tighter. Kane's gaze flicked toward him, then back to the warden. "You have 2 options," he said calmly. "You fight the riot and lose, or you let me out and stand a chance." Varshak did not move. Distantly, the screams grew louder, the sound of tearing metal, a guard's dying wail. "Tick-tock," Kane murmured. Varshak cursed under his breath. Then, reluctantly, he reached for the controls. The door hissed open. Adrian Kane stepped over the bodies without a second glance. The riot had burned itself out, leaving behind only the smoldering wreckage of Corther's once imposing security. The air was thick with the scent of scorched flesh and ionized metal, the sharp tang of desperation lingering in every corner. The Grand Marshal had arrived 20 minutes ago. He was still standing, but only because Adrian allowed it. Ovar's breath was ragged, his posture rigid as he faced the humans standing before him. Around them, what few remaining guards had either dropped their weapons or stood frozen, waiting for orders that would never come. Varshak remained silent, eyes flicking between the 2 men, understanding now that he had never truly been in control of the situation. Adrian was unarmed. He hadn't needed a weapon. "You knew," Kane said, voice calm but cutting. Ovaris did not answer. "You knew what would happen if you took me." He gestured at the destruction around them, at the ruined fortress, at the corpses littering the ground. "And yet you did it anyway." Ovaris clenched his jaw. "We underestimated you." "No," Kane corrected. "You misunderstood me." Silence. Kane took a slow step forward, and the Grand Marshal tensed. "You thought I was a monster because of my kill count," he continued. "You thought 90,000 meant I was ruthless, bloodthirsty, uncontrollable." He shook his head. "But the truth is much simpler." Ovaris swallowed. "And what truth is that?" Kane held his gaze. "I let you live." The word sent a visible shudder through the gathered officers. Ovaris stiffened, his mind racing through implications he had no time to process. "You invaded my world," Kane said, his tone never rising, never breaking from that unsettling calm. "You took me, believing you could cage me like an animal, believing you had the power to control what you didn't understand." Another step forward. "And now," he continued, "you see the real warning." Ovaris exhaled slowly. "Which is?" Kane's expression did not change. "If one of me can do this." His voice was almost a whisper. "What do you think happens when you force us all to fight?" No one spoke. No one moved. The message had been received. Humanity had never been at war with the Galactic Empire. But if they ever were, there would be no empire left.